So, cannot connect to a local instance of SQL Server. So, what exactly are we talking about? We need to know what an instance of SQL Server is. We also need to know what a local instance of SQL Server is. So, in order to answer that question, are you following? So, we will go to, let's ask Chat-GPT, what is an instance of SQL Server? So, anyway, there is a lot that has been talked about here, but I want us to focus on the section that you can see on the screen. It says an instance of SQL Server refers to an installation of the SQL Server database engine. Each instance operates as a separate database server capable of managing its own set of databases and providing a unique environment for database management. Here are key points to understand about SQL Server instances. Number one, types of instances. You have default instance. This is the primary instance of the server. It's accessible using just the server's name. For example, if you look at this computer now, let me open folder. Let me open a folder. Now, let me go to this PC. Are you following? Let me go to show more options for this PC. Let me go to properties. Now, when I go to properties, you see system about. Look at the name of my computer here is desktop-BFF-IOF6, right? So that means the default instance of SQL Server on this computer will have the same name as my current computer name, which happens to be desktop BFF-B55IOF6. For example, to explain what I'm trying to say, if you go to Management Studio and you want to connect to the default instance, you click on Management Studio like I've just done. Are you following? Good. As you can see, Management Studio is starting, right? Good. Taking some time to start. So you can see I want to connect to database engine. I want to use Windows authentication, right? But now you can see that there are two instances that are listed here. One has the computer name. This one is the default instance. Now the one that has the computer name /Amos Akinola, which happens to be your name, is a named instance. So the default instance has the same name as your computer name, which I've explained earlier. while a named instance on your computer has your computer name / the named instance. So for us to connect to the default instance, we select the one that has just the computer name, right? So we could use Windows authentication to connect. When using Windows authentication, it's not going to ask you for username and password. It's going to use the logon credentials of the current Windows user to connect you to SQL Server. So if I click connect now, if everything is fine, it should connect you. So everything is fine, right? So it's connecting. So we've just connected. Now if you want to disconnect from a server, so we've successfully connected, an object explorer is shown. Okay, for you to disconnect, you right click and say disconnect. Okay, now if Management Studio has already started and you want to connect again, just click this icon here, connect to Object Explorer. Now I can connect using SQL Server Authentication. There are other ways you can also connect, but I don't want to look at these ones. We are looking at Windows Authentication and SQL Server Authentication. So if you are connecting using SQL Server Authentication, that means you already have a user credentials that has already been created inside SQL Server itself that you can use to authenticate whoever wants to connect to SQL Server. For example, there is a login called SA. It's called System Admin. It's short form for System Admin. And this System Admin is the most powerful user in SQL Server. It controls all the other logins in SQL Server. So this one, it has a password that you must supply, which I'm not going to mention, okay, in the video. If you like, you can click remember password, and then you click what? Connect. So, but with either way, you saw that I still connected to the default instance, right? So I have connected to the default instance using both Windows authentication and SQL Server authentication, right? So let me disconnect. So back to what we are saying, named instance. This is an additional instance installed on the same server. It's accessible using the server's name followed by a / and the instance name, e.g. server name / instance name. For example, like I explained to you earlier on, I could connect to a named instance. Amos Akiola is a named instance because it has the server name. The server name is desktop-b55iof6. That's the server name / Amos Akiola. So this is the named instance. Okay? So I could connect using Windows authentication. Let's see what we have.
No, mo fẹ́ wò kàn mí nítàn mí ní láàbẹ̀. Ṣé bó wo àwọn ṣe máa ṣe báyìí?
Madam, please. Now, when you try to connect to the named instance called Amos Akiola, you get this message: a network-related or instance-specific error occurred while establishing a connection to SQL Server. The server was not found or was not accessible. Verify that the instance name is correct and that SQL Server is configured to allow what? Remote connections and so forth, and so on and so forth. Okay? So, unlike the default instance that we were able to connect to successfully, now we cannot connect to the named instance. So, it might occur that for one reason or the other, you are not able to install to connect to an instance of SQL Server. It might be an instance that is installed on the internet, or it might be an instance that is installed on your computer. In this case, we are not able to connect to an instance of SQL Server installed on our computer. The name of that instance is server, our computer name / Amos Akiola. Now we need to resolve this issue. We need to be able to connect, right? So, and that is why and this is what gave rise to this topic, cannot connect to a local instance of SQL Server. So the next question we are going to ask Chat-GPT. At least you don't know what an instance of SQL Server is. So the next question we are going to ask Chat-GPT is, what is a local instance of SQL Server? Okay. So he said a local instance of SQL Server refers to an instance of the SQL Server database engine installed and running on the same machine, local computer, where you are accessing it. Here are key points to understand about local instances. When you install SQL Server on your computer, it creates a local instance that you can manage directly from that machine. You can access this instance using tools like SQL Server Management Studio, which I've been demonstrating since. I've also explained default and named instances, so I'm not going to repeat that for now. Okay, so we cannot connect to this named instance called Amos Akinola. We need to troubleshoot. Okay, so when you cannot connect to an instance of SQL Server, whether named or default instance on your machine or your local computer, where you cannot connect, the first thing you do to troubleshoot, what did I say? To troubleshoot, the first thing you need to do to troubleshoot is you need to go to your services folder. Okay, so you click services, then you look for where your SQL Server instances are installed. So you can see there is an instance called Amos Akinola. It is not running. I can right click on it to start it, which I'm not going to do right now. You can see it's saying start. That means the state of this SQL Server instance called Amos Akinola is stopped. An instance of SQL Server can be in three possible states. It's either it's running, it's either it's paused, or is stopped. Okay, so Amos Akinola state, this instance called Amos Akinola, the instance is in a state that is called stopped, right? Now this is the default instance. The default instance is also called MS SQL Server. That's another name for it. Is this one that has the same name as the computer? You can call it as the computer name, like I've said before, or you can call it MS SQL Server, or you can call it localhost, or you can use the loopback IP address 127.0.0.1. We'll talk about that one later. So you can see the default instance is running. That's why we're able to connect to it the first time, right? Now there is also another instance called what? Muyik. Also there is in a running state, right? So we have three instances of SQL Server on this machine. They are Amos Akinola, MS SQL Server, and Muyik. Two of the instances are in the running state. One is in the stop state. So because this instance called Amos Akinola is in the stopped state, that is why we cannot connect to it from Management Studio whenever we use SQL Server authentication or Windows authentication. Okay, let's say remember password. So you click connect. You can still see it's searching. It says can still not connect, right? Cannot still connect, rather. Cannot still connect. So let's go. Let's start Amos Akinola. We can start it by right clicking and click start, or just click start this service. Both of them will achieve the same objective of starting the instance called Amos Akinola. Now, You can see that it's in running state. Now that it's in running state, you can either stop the service or pause it or restart. Okay, fine. Amos Akiola is now running. Let's click connect. We can connect now. Why? Because the service, the instance has been started in the services folder. Does that make sense? So, if an instance of SQL Server is not running on your machine, go to services folder and go and check whether that instance is in the running state. If it's not in the running state, then try to start it, right? All right, thank you for watching.